quieting the body and the mind. Feeling the sit bones into the ground, the crown up towards the sky. Softening, allowing, releasing, softening, allowing, releasing. Letting the breath elongate it. And just feel yourself letting go into this moment. Nowhere to go. Nothing to do. Moment of peace and equanimity. Not leaning forward to the next moment or pulling back to the last, but just resting right on this moment. I am here. I am breathing. I am feeling. I am noticing the thoughts, the sensations, the breath. Bringing the palms together at the heart center. Let the elbows come out to the sides and a little bit of pressure on the hands. They press into the center, just in front of the heart center. Pull the shoulders and chin back, lengthen up through the crown. Feel that elongation and a little bit of mula bandha, the perineum, the base of the spine starts to pull in and up. You start to clear Sushumna, that central energy channel up towards the crown. We're going to breathe in a pattern now, inhaling in 4 strokes through the nose, filling the lungs from the bottom to the top, like we're filling a water bottle in 4 equal strokes. Feel it coming from the pubis bone up to the belly, up to the heart center, up to the throat, up to the shoulders. So you're filling from the pubis bone to the shoulders in 4 equal strokes. Hold at the top for a moment, and then exhale out through puckered lips like you're blowing out through a straw. Empty it completely, empty the water bottle completely. Then inhale again, 4 strokes. Exhale out, long, steady breath. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold at the top, pull the shoulders back, chin back, crown up, gently engage root lock, pull up towards the crown, clearing Sushumna. Exhale out through the straw. Empty, 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 empty. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold at the top, lengthen up, engage. Exhale out through the straw. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold, engage, gently pull up. Exhale out through the straw. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold the breath, chin lock, root lock, gently pull up towards the crown. Exhale out through the straw. Inhale, 4 strokes. Hold at the top, chin lock, root lock, pulling it up. Exhale through the straw. Empty completely. Inhale 4 strokes. Hold, shoulders back, chin back, chest and heart, crown up. Engage gently, root lock, pull up. Exhale out through the straw. Hold the breath out at the end and just feel the emptiness for a moment. Begin again, 4 strokes. Hold, shoulders back, crown up, gently engage, pull up. Exhale through the straw. Inhale 4 strokes. Hold, chin lock, root lock, pulling it up, in and up, in and up. Exhale through the straw. Hold at the bottom, explore the emptiness. Inhale 4. Hold, gently pull, elongate up. Exhale through the straw. One more inhale. Hold, engage, pull. Exhale through the straw. Now relax your hands down onto your knees, palms face up, Gyan Mudra. Index fingers to thumb, pull the shoulders and chin back and just settle in here. Feel that sense of aliveness. At the same time, the sense of centeredness, relaxedness, but a little more prana in the system, a little more sense of sensitivity, sense of vibration. Allow yourself this place of centered awareness. Being more aware of our sensations, more aware of our breath, more aware of the sounds. Sitting back in the center. Watching, observing. And now into this space, imagine you are walking on a beach. A long, sunny beach. The waves lapping on the shore gently. The cool breeze blowing through the air. So you get that sense of a little coolness in the air and at the same time the warmth of the sun. The sound of the waves gently hitting the shore. And you're just on this beach and you're walking down the beach. Feeling, noticing, allowing, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to go. You're just walking on this beach. Now, as you walk down the beach, you're going to begin to notice things, people, events for which you are grateful. It's as though they are sunbathing on the beach and you are coming upon them. You are recognizing them as a blessing. and then you are moving on. There's no hurry to get to the next one. There's no lingering with the one that you're coming upon. You're just coming up, noticing a thing, a person, a happening for which you are grateful. You're acknowledging it. You're allowing it to touch you the way it's meant to touch you. And then you continue on. And you come upon another one, another thing, another person, another happening for which you were grateful. That has touched you in a way that has brought joy or happiness or peace or comfort or enlightenment or learning. And just continue walking down the beach, feeling the sun on your skin, the cool breeze, the sound of the waves. And you just keep coming upon, without any anxiousness, without any anticipation. Oh, and here's another blessing. Let me take a moment to acknowledge this blessing. Maybe lowering my eyes in gratitude. Just a slight moment of thank you. And then I move on. Continuing down the beach. Coming upon another blessing. Recognizing it. Acknowledging it. Honoring it. And moving on. And just allow yourself to kind of continue on this journey a little bit longer, recognizing one blessing after another. It starts to occur to you that this beach is never ending. There will never come a time when you reach the end of this beach. There is just one blessing before and one blessing behind in infinitum. There is no end. And just allow that realization to start to fill you as you're walking in the sun with the wind and the ocean, recognizing and honoring each blessing as you come upon it, one after another, after another, after another. And now take a moment to stop. Look out towards the ocean. Feel the sun on your skin, the wind in your hair, the vast ocean before you, the sky above, the sun, the earth below your feet. And allow all of the elements to touch you in the way they're meant to touch you. A moment of reverence and awe. A moment of deep gratitude. Close your eyes. And just be. Be. I am that I am. I am that I am. I am that I am. And taking a deep inhale. Hold, suspend, engage root lock, pull towards the crown. Exhale out through the mouth. Inhale, reach the arms up overhead. Hold and shake the hands out. Exhale, blow the air out. One more inhale. Hold, shake the arms, shake the head, shake the whole body. Exhale, slowly release the arms out through the auric field. The arms come down. Soften. Allow. Release. And slowly opening your eyes. And letting go. So that is one of my favorite meditations. I really love that meditation. So I suggest, we're gonna have this recorded, and so like whenever you're having a little self-pity party, I want you to just click on this meditation, okay, and do it again, and just realize how unhelpful the pity party is, and that's okay. We have them. We all have them. I have them too. But they obscure the truth of our reality, right? And so, it's a great shift. I think that this practice of Santosha is as I said earlier today, it's my second favorite of the yamas and the niyamas. The first one being ahimsa, which we talk about all the time in class, and I think is the primary practice that is going to get us to freedom and peace and liberation. The practice of loving kindness, particularly with ourselves. So that's number one. But then after that would be this one, this Santosha, the practice of contentment and gratitude, is just so good. It's just so delicious and so helpful. It's just one of these things where we can just so quickly shift from that kind of self-absorption and that self sort of like things aren't going my way and not showing up the way I want to like, whoa, look at this tree. Like I use an example of, you could just, I have a tree right outside my back deck here, a big one. And I could just look at each leaf and say, what a blessing, right? I would spend days doing that. Thank you, right? Each leaf is a manifestation of the divine. Right in my backyard. I don't have to go anywhere to find God. It's right here. So, this notion that things showing up a certain way is going to give us this sort of deeper peace is, it's an illusion, basically. And it doesn't mean that things working out the way we like them isn't pleasurable. It certainly is pleasurable, and it's, one could say, preferable, but it doesn't give us the deep peace that we're really seeking. Because there's always this sort of things when things work out the way we want them to. It's like, well, how can I maintain this? Or how can I keep this going? Or they're going to be leaving soon. A friend shows up and we feel better, but there's a part of us that knows this person is going to leave. And so we start feeling sad before they even leave. It's like, it's all this stuff that goes on because we are not deeply okay. We are deeply not recognizing the blessings of our incarnation. So it's kind of this grasping thing. I'm going to read I think maybe my favorite paragraph of the whole book so far. I mean, there's been I've been really quite impressed with it. I mean, I've read this book before, but I've been really re-impressed with it, reading it again. It's quite good. But I came across this paragraph in this chapter that I'm going to read right now, and I just and we'll talk about it a little bit. Let me start off with a little bit of precursor here. So she starts off with the jewel of Santosha invites us into contentment by taking refuge in a calm center, opening our hearts in gratitude for what we do have and practicing the paradox of not seeking. There is a Chinese proverb which states people in the West are always getting ready to live. There is a remarkable truth to this proverb. When we are little, we can't wait to get big. When we are big, we can't wait to get out of the house. When we can't wait to get we can't wait to get through college and get a job. Then we can't wait until our vacations, and finally we can't wait until retirement. As the Chinese proverb states, we never really live, we just get ready. Along with getting ready for the next thing, we tend to look at other people's lives and see what is missing in our own. We look across the fence and see what we don't have, rather than look inside the fence and enjoy what we do have. And here's the paragraph that I like. When we expect the world to meet our needs, we turn outside of ourselves to find sustenance and completion. We expect our partners to fulfill us, our jobs to meet our needs, and success to solve all our problems. And when it doesn't, we continue to play the if-only game, looking for that one more thing. Or we play the planning and regretting game. We let our contentment be managed by all these uncontrollable variables. As long as we think satisfaction comes from an external source, we can never be content. Looking outward for fulfillment will always disappoint us and keep contentment one step out of reach. That is a great paragraph, and it's just got so many little juicy things in it, and I love the end of it. That notion of contentment is one step out of reach. How many times have you been in that situation? I mean, I'll put my hand up again. It's like where if only this person would just do this, or if only this job let me do that, or if only it weren't raining out today, or it's like, and it's just that kind of like, I'm just not quite okay, like that sort of feeling, and how we realize we're kind of waiting for something out there to align. We're waiting for President Trump to go away, whatever it is, we're in order to be okay. And it's like, well, guess what? That you can see how the irrationality of that, right? I mean, we can understand it, that we do this. And at the same time, we see how we're setting ourselves up to never feel deeply okay. We might have okay moments, because again, we'll have the chocolate ice cream when we go to the grocery store and we're eating chocolate ice cream. But we're going to finish the chocolate ice cream, and then what? Right? And so, it's like that deep longing is not going to get satisfied by thinking that something out there is going to do it. And it doesn't mean we can't recognize our blessings. It's just as we did that beautiful meditation where we can realize, oh my God, I've got all these incredible, like an unending stream of blessings that are pouring forth towards me constantly, all the time, and yet for some reason my head is connected into whatever it might be. I mean, my favorite one is, when is Donald Trump going to leave the White House? Like, please, And so, but the more time I spend on that, the more time I spend in dissatisfaction, in not okayness, And so, um, this is such a great kind of just little moment. And so I thought maybe we just stop right here for a moment, because this, as I said, this paragraph is the kind of key to this whole sort of shifting from realizing that the external world is going to bring me to peace and happiness. Not that there's not parts of it that are beautiful and can't help, but that there's another level of awareness, of consciousness, that I need to cultivate if I'm going to experience kind of lasting peace, lasting equanimity. If I'm, and so, yeah, let's just see. Does anybody have any thoughts about this? I'm gonna kind of open up my thing here a little bit. Madeline would like to say something. Unmute yourself, Madeline, please.
I just read an article about that has something to do with this, that it's more important to be in the moment, not to look back, not to look forward, just to be in the moment. Otherwise, you really are full of anxiety. Like what was, what will be, but it's important to be here for yourself in this very moment and live in the moment. And I think it's really important. And I've sort of tried to do it. And I think it's good. I really do.
Thank you. I think that's really well said. And that is again, that you live life in the moment. The moment to moment is when it's actually happening. So the time we spend reminiscing about the past or thinking about, what could or couldn't happen in the future, it's not that all of that is bad, because some of that is actually part of the present moment too. Like planning, for instance, can be part of your present moment. I am planning a dinner, right? So I need, that's actually in the present moment. I'm planning. But if I'm getting anxious about how the dinner is going to turn out, then I'm just wasting my time, And so it's like, it's that sort of difference. And I think that's what you're trying to get at.
It is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
If the dinner falls apart, well, then it falls apart and I'll have to accept it.
Right.
But I think that it's important not to say that it will be perfect, because nothing is perfect. Not today.
But the other thing that'll happen is, if you start to get really good at the present moment, that what starts to happen is you get better at the present moment. So as the meal is unfolding and something is, maybe you don't have an ingredient or something, rather than get all upset about this, you get actually better at saying, well, maybe there's a substitute here, or maybe I don't really even need this ingredient, and we'll just have the dinner without that ingredient, and you don't get obsessed about that ingredient, and now you're able to enjoy the dinner still, rather than be thinking about, shit, I wish I had that ingredient, And so you see how you can get caught by one little thing not turning out the way you want to, rather than staying in the present moment. And staying in the present moment keeps elevating your opportunity for a more rich experience. Even things that don't go our way can actually become rich experiences if we stay present.
Mm-hmm.
It's when we start creating the story of, oh, this isn't turning out the way I like it, or gee, why is this happening to me now, that the misery starts to beget itself. And so this is being content. Cultivating contentment with whatever is showing up allows that ourselves to be present in that present moment.
And being more optimistic, I think, because within ourselves we feel okay with it. So I didn't get the mashed potatoes perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good example, and it is okay, and it's fine, and so that dropping this storyline that things have to turn out a certain way. This is particularly helpful. I love that this teaching is falling as we're entering into the holidays, because these holidays are going to be like no other holidays we've ever had. And let's face it, it's not going to meet these kind of deeply ingrained expectations that we have about the holidays, for better or worse. I mean, I was saying to somebody earlier, like, I'm going to miss my family dysfunction, you know? And so, you know, and because those moments are actually very grounding for us. And so even the whole like little idiosyncrasies about them actually give us a sense of groundedness, and not having them is disquieting. So, but to be able to stay present actually means that we each have the opportunity to enjoy that day, the Thanksgiving, for instance, or any day, if we're able to stay present and not say, oh, it's supposed to show up this way, and where's the turkey, and where's Uncle Joe? And, if you're spending time on that, you're spending time creating misery for yourself, as opposed to accepting.
We've done this every year, and we're going to do it this year, even though I'm not going to be with my family. We're going to do Zoom, but we're each going to say what we're thankful for right now. And there are things to be thankful for at this very moment.
There's always things to be thankful for. And
Right.
that's the thing. And that's the trick. The trick is when we start going down that road of this isn't turning out the way I want it to, is to sort of say, well, what am I grateful for? And maybe what is actually this moment even offer? There's a gift in this moment. Some difficulty, some challenge, I know that I'm growing in other ways, even from this pandemic, that I wouldn't have grown from if it hadn't happened, right? So, so yes, am I great? I don't know if I'm grateful for it, because obviously it's a terrible thing on a lot of levels, but I am changing and growing and evolving in ways that I wouldn't have done had it not been for this. So, there's always places to look for gratitude.
But what you're doing, Greg, is you're accepting what is, instead of bucking the system, saying, you're just saying I am in the pandemic and I have to deal with it, and you're accepting of it, and you're taking from it what you can, instead of saying I got to change it. It's not working for me. So that's good.
Fighting reality is almost always a losing battle, right? So, this is our reality. And so the question is, what skills can we bring to help us navigate reality in ways which are helpful for me and hopefully helpful for others, And again, it's like, I use that analogy of becoming the riverman. I love that analogy, because I used to spend a lot of time on the water, and I used to do canoeing and all this kinds of stuff. And, life is like this river, and sometimes the river is smooth and calm, and you're coming out on these beautiful lakes and stuff. But other times there's like white water and rocks, And so you need to learn how to be able to navigate, not so much even navigate, but just keep yourself in the flow, in the current of the river, and be able to enjoy it regardless of the circumstance. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes it's cold, sometimes it's like it's not always going to be a beautiful warm day, but you can still find ways of navigating that bring you the most peace and equanimity, even when things aren't showing up the way we would like them to. Which, again, this is 2020. It's like this is the year of things not showing up the way we would like them to. But it doesn't mean we're not still growing and learning. And actually, as you know, Denise, you've talked about like spending more time at home with your family. Yes, that's challenging, but also it's amazing, right? I mean, you guys you'll never forget this time with your family, right? You're always going to look back on it with some fondness, even though it's been challenging, So it's it's how do we kind of remember that this is just all. And also, I've learned for me, this is myself, is cut ourselves some slack. Practice ahimsa. I go back to ahimsa. Having that impatience, and I do this with myself, of, oh, I'm not figuring this out, or I'm not navigating, I'm like, oh, I hit another rock on the river, It's like being in that canoe, whack into a rock, and then I beat myself up about hitting the rock. as opposed to, this is all part of the learning. You've got to hit a few rocks if you're going to become the riverman, and I think this time is sort of like that. It's like I keep feeling like I'm kind of bouncing off the rocks and kind of whacking around, and then I'm like, oh, okay, that was unpleasant, but rather than beat myself up about it, how did I not see that rock, or why didn't I miss that? I just think, oh, okay, get back up, keep going. And that's that being okay with what is, and realizing that kind of bumps and bruises and soreness is, I'm talking not just physically, but kind of emotionally, is just part of this time. It's just part of what we're going through, and not to pretend like it shouldn't be part of it. I mean, it's like anything. So that's this practice of contentment. Can I keep pulling myself back to, I am okay, I'm divine, I'm eternal, I am whole, I am. And then whatever's happening around me is just what's happening. And I'm like, let me try to engage with it as gracefully as I can, enjoy it, when I can, but also when it's difficult or challenging, just breathe and say, okay, it's difficult and challenging right now, and this practice is huge. This practice of pulling ourselves back out of woe is me, out of self-pity, out of this isn't supposed to be happening now, all those sort of stories that just kind of bring us down into some negative energy, into like tamasic and rajasic energy. We're trying to rise our vibration back up, and we can do that by sort of shifting our energy, just like we did with the breathing, like that breathing meditation. That's going to raise our prana up, raise our awareness up, and then we get our prana and awareness up, and then bring good stuff into it. Don't bring the woe is me stuff in, but bring the stuff that keeps us uplifted and realizes, okay, how can I focus on my blessings and enhancing my blessings, right? Enhancing the things in my life, which are many, and how do I make them, more in my consciousness? And then, have a place for the stuff that obviously it's not to put our heads in the sand, to recognize, hey, there aren't difficulties, but not to overly spend time thinking about them unless we're directly working on them. If we're working on some projects that is difficult for us, okay, work on that project. And I'm doing some of that myself, but don't beat yourself up about whether you're hitting the rocks or not, because everything is different right now. Everything takes a little extra energy, takes a little more figuring out. I mean, I don't know about all you guys, but just figuring out what I was doing for Thanksgiving. I mean, that was like an up and down, swirly, girly, path, but that's just the way it is. And that's okay. And we actually learn how to be, okay, how can I be conscious in this? How can I think about myself and what I would like, but also think about others and what's going to be safe for them, and maybe try to listen a little bit more deeply to the underlying maybe fears or whatever is coming up with people, and try to be compassionate with that, not just kind of bulldoze my way into, well, what do I want? Let me just try to make it happen. But it's more like, how do I balance off my desires with what's really the most graceful thing to do, And so that's growth right there, and I can be grateful for that.
And also to get rid of your guilt feelings, which is really important.
I agree.
I am closer to my children now than I have ever been. I talk to them every day. It's amazing. It really is. This pandemic has created that. Mm-hmm. And I talk to my grandchildren every day, which is, and I do see them at a distance. But the point is that I do feel like much closer to them. Like we discuss things that we've never discussed before. And I think that is a positive of this whole thing.
Yeah. Yep.
I agree. I just wanted to say a little something. I know I don't talk a lot, Greg, but I love those gatherings. And just it's for me exactly what Diana was saying, is that the pandemic has brought me closer, so closer to my friends and my family. It's almost like I was not a human being before. I would go around, I would be with my animals, avoiding people actually, because I was afraid of them. A bit afraid of people. I thought I was not a people's person actually. And now I realize that we are all kind of looking for the same thing. It's so strange. It's just being more connected. And I don't know. It's just, for me, the pandemic has been, like you say, it's very hard to say that because I know people are dying and so, but it brings me more to my, it makes things more real, more precious.
Right.
Everything is more precious.
Right. I love what you just said, Francine. There's a analogy in yoga that says that yoga is basically like a polishing. We're polishing the jewel of ourselves, of our consciousness. But when you think about a polishing is actually an abrasive process. Polish is you're abrading the tarnish off of who we are, so that the gem can shine through. It can come through. And I think in many ways this pandemic has been doing the same thing. It's like abrading our jackets, the identities that we have, the sense of I'm strong and I've got my act together, and here I am, and this is who I am, and I'm, this is what I do, and these are my minions and all that kinds of stuff. Like this pandemic has shaved, that is like abrading that sense of self-confidence a little bit, and so what's happened is we're opened up, we are more exposed, and then the people who we love and who love us become, it's like we are actually moving towards divinity. We are moving towards reunion. That, I mean, I have the theory that all longing is a longing for God. So it's a longing for that, to be able to, what I said earlier about not everything's a little bit like, oh, if only. But what we want to do is rest back in our divinity, rest back. And when we're connecting deeply with someone else, intimately with someone else, it gives us a taste of that. It gives us a taste of that divinity. It gives us a taste of that reunion. So our relationships can actually become more deep and more poignant, more sublime, because this tarnish is being rubbed off, and we're actually more vulnerable and exposed in many ways. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like the armor that people wear is being, once it's removed, it's the real you. It's more of an honest you. And then everyone puts the armor on and off they go, and you're really not knowing who they are, because they are giving you the
there'll be parts of this pandemic that we will miss. And I actually I feel so much for the frontline workers, particularly the healthcare workers and stuff like that are having to deal with this. Especially, I was thinking about them in New York, but I said this, and I feel by it that many of the people who are going through the frontline work right now of taking care of people during this crisis, they will look back on this time as the best part of their careers. Because they are in it. We're talking about life and death on a big scale, which they will probably, hopefully, never have to experience again. But they will look back on it as one of the most profound times in their lives. And that's, again, that you're open, you're exposed, you're at your wit's end, you're at the edge of what you're capable of doing. There is something actually divine about that, where you're that exposed and that vulnerable, and so yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing where we wouldn't wish it upon us, but when we're in it, it actually is amazing. It's actually an amazing experience. So yeah, there are things going on right now that are beyond us. You know. Would you like me to read a little bit more? There's some good stuff in this chapter. I'm going to switch my view here for a second. We spend vast amounts of our lives moving towards what we like, whether the object is food, clothes, colors, music, self-image, conversation, hobbies, friends, activities, beliefs. We see our preferences in all these areas as that which gives us pleasure, and we seek the permanence of that pleasure in our lives like it was a matter of life and death. Likewise, we move away from what we don't like. Anything that puts our pleasure at risk, we see as repulsive and to be guarded against. We think we are free, but in truth, we spend huge amounts of our energy maneuvering ourselves and manipulating others so that our days will be filled with what we like and be void of what we don't like. This is that analogy I use of like the dogs in the cage. Like we're trying to build this like gilded cage. We spend huge amounts of energy on the gilded cage. But we forget like, oh, it's still a cage. You know, we're still in there. I have noticed this maneuvering of life as a physical feeling of gripping in my body. When I find myself around something that gives me pleasure, it is almost like something in me grips with a desire for that pleasure. The same gripping sensation happens when I think I might miss out on the pleasure. Likewise, when I find myself in a meeting feeling bored or restless, I feel tenseness inside my body as if I'm trying to protect myself from the unpleasant experience. So again, this is that sort of that clinging, that gripping, that not able to kind of flow with the river. So the river is calm one moment, and okay, I like the calmness, I'm kind of gripping, but you're still moving on the river, and it's eventually going to change, you know? And so in truth, the yogis tell us things are neutral. It is the personal labeling we put on these things that makes them appealing or repulsive. When I was a small child, I was made to sit at the kitchen table and finish eating my plateful of squash. It took me several miserable hours to complete the task, after which I swore to hate squash for the rest of my life. For decades, I carried on my hate campaign towards squash. It wasn't until very recently that I looked at squash in the store with more curiosity. I boldly bought the squash, brought it home, cooked it, and ate it. Much to my surprise, I loved it. The point is that squash is neutral. It was my long history of giving meaning to the squash that made it a differing at times, both repulsive and pleasurable. Sang Song poignantly stated, "The way isn't difficult for those who are unattached to their preferences." If you want to begin to experiment with the truth of this statement, try spending days doing what you don't like and not doing what you do like, and see how attached you are to your preferences. It is our need to satisfy our preferences that keeps us from contentment and makes our days difficult. Our seeking and avoiding, tensing and gripping become expensive uses of our energy. Oscar Wilde once said that there are two kinds of unhappiness in the world. One is not getting what you want, the other is getting what you want. Perhaps he knew that satisfying our likes and avoiding our dislikes just keeps us on a roller coaster of needing to continue to satisfy our likes and avoid our dislikes. True freedom and contentment begin to find their way to us when we can see things as they are, neutral, and not spend so much energy manipulating things according to our preferences. So that is just a lot of really good stuff there where we can, I think, be compassionate with ourselves and our preferences and know that many of our preferences are perfectly fine and even, we could say good or helpful. So a lot of our preferences are things, wanting other people to be happy. Like I want other people to be happy. That's my preference, right? However, look at how we can, maybe even in relationship, if we're overly attached to someone else being happy, right? Then we will often do stuff ourselves that isn't necessarily good for us, right? Because we are overly attached to someone else being happy, right? And this goes on with our parents, this goes on with our partners, this goes on with our kids. It's like, if we constantly see ourselves as my job is to make other people happy, then where's me in this program, right? And so what if I didn't have as strong a preference, like in terms of whether someone was happy or not with it? Like, it's like, here's what I'm going to do, and if you're happy, great, and if you're not happy, that's okay too, and this you can start to see the freedom, right? And I think this is part of the reason why most of our culture is really disparaging of spiritual enlightenment, of spiritual strength. Because if you're spiritually enlightened, you are free. You are no longer manipulable. You are no longer you now walk through the world knowing who you are and knowing your preferences, and you just move in that direction. And somebody trying to guilt you into some other way of seeing things or beat you into some other way of seeing things isn't going to work. And so you now become this kind of unmanipulable being, and most of us are playing some sort of game. We're either manipulating others or allowing ourselves to be manipulated because there's some benefit to us to being manipulated. So, this is why Santosha, this practice of contentment, is in the yamas and the niyamas. Is actually, it's moving us towards liberation. All of these things now I'm realizing in the niyamas is about really specific steps to start moving us towards freedom and enlightenment. And so this is kind of, we did the purity one and the cleansing one, kind of, as I sort of said, clean up our act, start to kind of cleanse ourselves of things that don't, that toxify us in some way. And now we start to practice this act of contentment and gratitude for what is and what we have. And so it's starting to get free of that hedonic cycle, right? Which we've talked about before, the hedonic cycle of wealth and status and appearance, right? Which is sort of like you can never have quite enough of those things, but you can't get off the cycle, right? Once you sort of decide that, more wealth will make me feel better, or you don't even decide this, you just kind of believe it, and then, or more status will make me feel better, more secure, or if I look better in that kinds of way, more attractive in some way, then that will be better. Then you're just never going to find happiness on that cycle ever, because it never stops. There's never a place where you can rest, and so you got to jump off that cycle, but you need something else, and that's where these guys come in. Because being in the void for too long is not tolerable either, unless you're, again, completely enlightened, but we're not. So we need another structure, another system in which to say, there's got to be a different way. And this literally happened to me when I was at MIT. And I'll just tell that story briefly before we end. So I'm at MIT. I'm working there. I'm working in the athletic department and doing stuff at the business school and doing stuff with human resources. I'm kind of like all over the place in some different ways. And I'm kind of getting myself established there. And so at one point, though, I start to get kind of depressed. And I'm realizing, like, what am I getting depressed? Here I am. I'm at MIT, and I was working, and it was, challenging in some ways. But I was in MIT, and then I realized, I kind of looked around and saw some of the people who had been there for, I'd only been there for 2 or 3 years, and been there for 20 years, 30 years, that kinds of stuff. And most of them, not all of them, but most of them were pretty miserable. And I just I started to realize that getting all that security, getting that status, getting getting all the trappings of it was probably not going to make me happy, because it's like there's something else. There's always something more. There's always at MIT. There's always somebody smarter than you, right? There's always somebody more famous than you, and all and all that sort of stuff. So it's like you're always going to be in that game of measuring yourself against a standard which is like kind of ridiculous. And so it's like I need to do something else, you know. And but I wasn't sure what. And so I eventually came to Southern Connecticut because here's where it's at. And but that's a whole other story. But you can see how I was getting trapped up in this kind of notion of establishing myself and having the status and getting, you know, all that sort of stuff going, and then just realizing this is not one is it's not making me all that happy, and two, I look around and see a lot of people complaining and whining, right? A lot of people in this self-misery, not seeing their gratitudes, not seeing how lucky we are to be here, but actually complaining about it in some way or another. And I'm like, if I'm doing this, I'm going to become who they're becoming, and I'm like, this isn't a good plan. So I got to get off. And so I did, and I went around in my own circle with that too for a while, and here I am today. So anyways, let's close up this session so we can I turn the video off, and then we'll have a little bit of a post conversation as well. So let's just come back into an easy seated pose for a moment, feeling the sit bones into the ground, feeling the crown making its way up towards the sky. Breathing, let the breath return to a nice, easy, steady breath. Shoulders back and down, crown up towards the sky. Inhaling, chest and belly rising. Exhaling, chest and belly falling. Inhale, chest and belly rises. Exhale, chest and belly falls. Just take a moment to notice, maybe with some gratitude, how quickly our energy can shift from the thinking mind to the sensing, to the feeling, just through watching a few deep breaths. What a gift that is right there. Oh. Bringing the palms together at the heart center. Take a deep inhale. Exhale, let it go with a sigh. Inhale. All that is sacred and divine in me bows to you and honors all that is sacred and divine in you. Namaste.